Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukham karoti vachanam pangam langyate girim yat kripatamaham vande Shri Guru Deenataranam Paramanandam Madhavam. Hare Krishna again. So this section of the 9th chapter, it deals with the benedictions that are given to Dhruva by Lord Vishnu. So previously we saw that Dhruva, at the culmination of his austerities, has personal darshan of Lord Vishnu. And then he renders 12 verses of wonderful prayers to the Lord, glorifying his position, glorifying his relationship with the material world, and then asks for the association of the Lord's devotees. So he does not ask for what he had initially set out to ask, but he says, just give me the association of your devotees. And now the Lord is ready to give them benediction. In the previous verse, the Lord says that you have executed pious vows. I also know the desire in your heart, and it is ambitious and difficult, but I shall favor you with its fulfillment. So now let's see what are the benedictions that the Lord gives to his devotee. Naniradeshtatam bhadra yad brajajishnu dhruva yatra graha rakshataranam jyotisham chakramahitam medyam go chakravatstashnu rastat kalpavasinam dharmagni kashyapah shukro muniyo yavanukshaha charanti dakshani kritya brahmanto ya satarakaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead continued, my dear Dhruva, I shall award you the glowing planet known as the pole star, which will continue to exist even after the dissolution at the end of the millennium. No one has ever ruled this planet, which is surrounded by all the solar systems, planets and stars. All the luminaries in the sky circumambulate this planet. Just as bulls tread around a central pole for the purpose of crushing grains. Keeping the pole star to the right, all the stars inhabited by the great sages like Dharma, Agni, Kashyap, and Shukra circumambulate this planet, which continues to exist even after the dissolution of all others. So this is the beginning of the wonderful benedictions that the Lord is going to be giving Dhruva. So the first benediction that he gives was the original desire of Dhruva. He wanted a kingdom greater than his forefathers. So that's the first benediction that the Lord avoids him. So he says, Nanye adhishtatam, that never ruled by anyone else. So none of your forefathers have ever ruled this. Vishnu Chakravarti says that the planet existed, but it had never been ruled. So now Dhruva has been given the proprietorship of that planet. Then he says, Dhruvakshati. Dhruvakshati means that this is your eternal residence. Points to the fact that it is a non-destructible planet. Dhruvakshati also means that this planet will be known as Dhruvaloka, or the place where Dhruva resides. And then Brajishnu, that it's going to be radiant. brightly glowing. Stashnu. Stashnu means that it will be stationary. Then Graha, Rakshak, Taranam, and Jyotisam. So Graha is planets, Vriksha is constellations, Taranam is stars, and Jyotisham is luminaries. So essentially all the celestial bodies will revolve around this planet. So Chakram Ahitam. In fact, what the Lord says is that the entire universe will revolve around this planet, just like bulls that are yoked to a pillar. Then planets and constellations that are inaugurated by Dharma. So the constellation is Bharani. Then Agni inhabits the constellation called Kritika. Then Kashyap, he inhabits the constellation of Cancer. Shukra is in the Venus, and Vanuksha is called the Big Dipper in the Ursa Major. So all these Charanti Dakshani Kritya. So they will move keeping Dhruvalok on their side. So generally when you keep a personality on the right side, it is considered to be a sign of respect, that the personality is more elevated to you. So Krishna is saying that, that all these inhabitants of exalted stature, right? Dharma, Agni, Shukracharya, Kashyap Muni, all these are elevated people. Their locus, their place of residence will circumambulate your planet, keeping it to the right as a sign of respect. And then Parastata Kalpa, that it will last beyond the day of Brahma. Kalpa is also sometimes considered as the life of Brahma. So essentially meaning that it is eternal. In the 5th canto, we will see that the location of Dhruvaloka is described. It's essentially above the Swarga, above the planets of the demigods, and below Maharloka. So above it is Maharlok, Janalok, Tapalok, and Satyalok. But in terms of the glories, it will be the highest. Prabhupada says that although the pole star existed before the occupation by Dhruva Maharaj, it had no predominating deity. And Prabhupada says that even Brahma, among the topmost living creature within this universe, was not allowed to enter Dhruvaloka. Now, we'll see later on that Dhruva's planet will be described by 3 terms interchangeably. So it will also be called as Vaikuntha, and it would also be called as Shishumar. All these terms essentially are referring to Dhruvaloka, and it is in the area where Shrudaksha Vishnu resides. So Shishumar and Vaikuntha are considered to be the region where Shrudaksha Vishnu resides, and that is where Dhruva's planet is situated. So what does it mean when the Lord says that your planet is eternal? So at the end of Brahma's day, there is a partial destruction, and all the lokas, all the planets other than the top 4 planets are destroyed. So other than Maharlok, Janalok, Tapalok, and Satyalok, everything else is submerged in water. Dhruvaloka will be preserved at this time. So Vishwanath Chakravarti, he quotes 3 verses from the Bhagavatam to indicate that after Dhruv died, he ascended to Vaikuntha. So part of the Vaikuntha manifests in the material world. And that's why Dhruva's planet is called a spiritual planet, even though it's in the material world. Dhruva, after dying, it said that he went back to Godhead, but he's still in the material world. That's because that portion of the material world where Dhruva's planet exists is non-different from Vaikuntha. And Vishwanath Chakravarti also mentions that when the final destruction happens at the end of the life of Brahma, because you can imagine that if Dhruva continues to reside there beyond the life of Brahma, then he will collide with the second Dhruva, because Dhruva comes once in a life of Brahma. He comes during the first Manvantara, the Sambhavu Manvantara. So what is mentioned is that at the time of the final destruction, Dhruva ascends to Mahavaikuntha in the spiritual sky. The Prabhupada says that at the end of Brahma's life, selected personalities go back home, back to Godhead. Dhruva Maharaj is one of them. The Lord assures Dhruva that he would exist beyond the partial dissolution of the universe. Thus, at the end of the complete dissolution, Dhruva Maharaj would directly go to Vaikuntha Lok, to a spiritual planet in the spiritual sky. Now, there's some lack of clarity in terms of what happens in subsequent days of Brahma. Because in every day of Brahma, there is the first Manvantara, and then there are subsequent Manvantras. But at least my understanding is Dhruva appears once in a life of Brahma. And when the universe is freshly created, when the Visarga is happening, then Dhruva appears. And then after that, he lives in Dhuvalok for the duration of the life of Brahma. And then after Brahma dies, he goes back to Godhead. He goes back to Vaikuntha. Okay, verse 22.
Your video is not proper narration. Yes, no.
Okay, sorry about
Thank
that.
you.
Okay, so next verse, 22. Prasthite tu vanam pitra dattvagam dharma samshrayaha satrimshadvarsha sahasram rakshitavya hatendriyaha. After your father goes to the forest and awards you the rule of his kingdom, you will rule continuously the entire world for 36,000 years. And all your senses will continue to be as strong as they are now. You will never become old. So 2 benedictions are given in this verse. One is that he will rule the kingdom of his father for 36,000 years. Prabhupada says this, that during that time, this is Satyug, people live for 100,000 years. So 36,000 years is about a third of the duration of his life. And the second is that he will never grow old, right? So first is dharma samshraya, that he will rule religiously. And the second is avyahata indriya, that his senses will never decay. Okay. Verse 23. Tvadbhratarvyuttame nashte mrigyayam tu tanmanaha anvishanti vanam mata davagnim swapravekshati. The Lord continued, sometime in the future, your brother Uttam will go hunting in the forest, and while absorbed in hunting, he will be killed. Your stepmother Suruchi, being maddened upon the death of her son, will go to search him out in the forest, and she will be devoured by a forest fire. So Dhruva had some animosity towards his stepmother, Suruchi, because she had insulted him to strengthen the position of the son, her own son, Uttam. And even though Uttam was a small boy, Dhruv was 5 years, Uttam was younger than him, so he was a small boy, but Dhruv still had some resentment towards him because it was because of Uttam that his father did not take him in his lap. Suruchi insulted him. So the Lord is now addressing those feelings in Dhruva, even though Dhruva had not asked for it. So the Lord says that Suruchi, your stepmother who had insulted you, will die in a forest fire after the son that she was trying to protect against you is killed. So Suruchi essentially insulted Dhruva to protect the position of Uttam. She did not want Dhruva to become the successor to the throne. So the Lord is saying that she tried to protect Uttam and insulted you. Now that same son will be killed in an untimely manner, and she will die in grief. So one should not take this as a curse by the Lord on either Suruchi or Uttam. So it's not that the Lord is being malicious, saying that you harm my devotees, so I curse you for Uttam to die, to be killed, and for Suruchi to die in forest fire. Rather, it is simply a prediction. So Suruchi and Uttam, they will die because of their respective karmas. It so happens that the destiny is not very kind to them. So driven by their past karma, they will reach their respective ends. So the Lord is simply stating that. So one should not consider this as the Lord bearing malice to either Suruchi or Uttam and cursing them on behalf of Dhruva. Srila Prabhupada says that when one serves a Vaishnava unknowingly, one gets the good result. And if one unknowingly insults a Vaishnava, one suffers the bad result. So this is not really Krishna actively doing anything, just the result of their own activities and their own destiny. Because Uttam did not even do anything to Dhruva. It would be unfair for the Lord to kill Uttam just to appease some resentment in Dhruva. Right? So Suruchi she did, but Uttam was innocent. He was a child and actually very, very affectionate to his brother. We'll see that later. So Uttam did not even do anything. Right? So it would have been unfair for the Lord to curse Uttam to die, but he dies because of his own destiny. Verse 24. Ishtvamam yagya hridayam yagya pushkal dakshanaha bhuktva che ashisha satya Antimam samsmarashyasi. The Lord continued, I am the heart of all sacrifice. You will be able to perform many great sacrifices and also give great charities. In this way, you will be able to enjoy the blessings of material happiness in this life. And at the time of the death, of your death, you will be able to remember me. So Dhruva will enjoy many material opulences. He will live a pious life. So performing yagyas and giving in charity. He will constantly remember the Lord, and until the very last point of his life. So Srila Prabhupada says that Antanarayana Smriti, that the result of whatever we do in executing spiritual activities is successful if we can remember Narayan. And then he says that the program of constant remembrance can be disturbed by many things. But Dhruva Maharaj's life would be so pure, as assured by the Lord himself, that Dhruva would never forget. Thus, at the time of his death, he would remember the Supreme Lord, and therefore, before his death, he will enjoy the material world, not by sense gratification, but by performing great sacrifices. Srila Prabhupada also mentioned in the purport that in this particular age, Krishna Prasad is best, and the great sacrifice is Sankirtan Yagya. Okay. Next verse, 25. Tato ganta simatsthanam sarvaloka namaskritam upari stad rishibhayastvam yato navrate gato gataha. The personality of Godhead continued, my dear Dhruva, after your material life in this body, you will go to my planet, which is always offered obeisances by the residents of all other planetary systems. It is situated above the planets of the 7 rishis. And having gone there, you will never have to come back to the material world. So Vishwanath Chakravarti says that this verse indicates that Dhruva Lok is eternal, which means that it is a spiritual planet. So one might say that if it is a spiritual planet and Dhruva at the end of the life of Brahma, what happens to it? So same thing, spiritual when spiritual things manifest in the material world, sometimes they're prakrit, sometimes they're aprakrit. So just because they can be seen or not seen does not mean they exist or not exist. Same thing is said about Vrindavan. Vrindavan is eternal. The question still remains that, but the earth keeps getting destroyed. In fact, the earth is destroyed a lot more often because it's a lower planet. Then every time the Manvantara changes, every time the Chatur Yuga changes, every time the Kalpa changes, it keeps getting destroyed. But Vrindavan stays there. Sometimes it's Prakrit, sometimes it's Aprakrit. So Prabhupada says that in this verse, the word Navartate is very significant. The Lord says you will not come back to this material world, for you will reach Matsthanam, my abode. Therefore, Dhruvaloka is the abode of Lord Vishnu within this material world. Upon it, there is an ocean of milk, and within the ocean, there is an island known as Svetadvip. It is clearly indicated that this planet is situated above the 7 planetary system of the rishis. And because the planet is Vishnu Loka, it is worshipped by all other planetary systems. It may be questioned here, what will happen to the planet known as Dhruvalok at the time of the dissolution of the universe? The answer is simple. Dhruvalok remains. like other Vaikuntha lokas beyond this universe. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has commented in this connection that the very word Navrate indicates that the planet is eternal. In Hari Bhakti Shuddhodaya, so Hari Bhakti Shuddhodaya is a part of Naradiya Purana. It's spoken by Narad Muni. And part of those narrations are considered Hari Bhakti Shuddhodaya. Shuddhodaya means, Udaya means the manifestation. Shuddha means the pure. So Hari Bhakti Shuddhodaya is a part of the verses that talk about the manifestation of pure devotional service. And in this, Narad Muni actually recounts from his perspective the pastime of Dhruva Maharaj. And it's similar to the Bhagavatam, but some more details. So in the Hari Bhakti Shuddhodaya, Narad Muni says that that when Dhruva was given these benedictions by the personality of Godhead, then Dhruva says, "Oh my Lord, because I was seeking an opulent position, I was performing severe types of penance and austerity. Now I've gotten you, who are very difficult for the great demigods, saintly persons and kings to attain. I was searching after a piece of glass, but instead I found a most valuable jewel. Therefore, I am so satisfied that I do not wish to ask any benedictions from you." So when Dhruva says that, then the Lord responds. So this is again in Hari Bhakti Shuddhodaya. The Lord says that nobody of the mundane and of the celestial world will be able to know about your spiritual achievement. Therefore, they may speculate that what is the achievement for one who worships Vishnu. So for the time being, I grant you the place with the throne of your father, for which you first supplicated to me. But finally, you will be attaining my transcendental abode. So this gives the answer to the question that why does the Lord give Dhruva material benedictions? Because the fact that Dhruva got the audience of the Lord means that he had reached the stage of Shuddha Bhakti. Later on, it will say that he was actually at the stage of Prema Bhakti. He had no material desires. So to give material benediction to a person who has no material desires is a curse. And we will see that later on Dhruva will lament. Why does the Lord still give him material benedictions? And Narad Muni indicates that even though Dhruva is saying, I don't want these benedictions, the Lord says that if I simply would have taken you back to Vaikuntha, then everybody would have said that the worshippers of Lord Vishnu do not get any material opulences. So by giving you both, I have also given an inspiration for others to take to the path of bhakti. Right? So the essence of Dhruva Maharaj's Leela is this: akama sarva kamo vi moksha kamotar. That whether you are free of desires or whether you are full of desires, tivrena bhakti yogena, that you should perform devotional service. That's the essence of the pastime. There are many other learnings, but the core pastime, the core point, just like in the pastime of sati, the essence is Vaishnava prat. What is the dangers of offending a Vaishnava? There are many other. We have said we have taken almost 25 teachings out of it, but the essence is Vaishnava prat. Even great personalities can become completely fallen because of offending devotees. So in Dhruva's pastime, there are many other teachings also. The importance of surrender to a guru, being determined in your practices. Later on, we will see Dhruva exemplifying a perfectly well-balanced devotee. He was a perfect king and a perfect devotee, right? Many other teachings will come, but the essence is that with any kind of desires that you have, only go to Krishna. So that is why Narad Muni, he quotes this verse, that this is the reason the Lord gave him material benedictions, because he wanted to inspire others also, that even if your material desires, come unto me. No need to go anywhere else. And just like Dhruva, you will get your material desires and much more than that. Okay. So, so we can quickly go over the desires of Dhruva that were implicit or explicit, and the benedictions offered by the Lord. And you don't have to note them. I'll put them I'll summarize them in a table and give it. So the desire of Dhruva was to sit on the lap or the throne of his father. The Lord says that you will sit on the throne of your father for 36,000 years. The desire of Dhruva was to have a position more elevated than his ancestors. The Lord gave Dhruva Dhruvaloka, which is a position higher than any planet, including Satyaloka. Dhruva had some aversion to Suruchi and Uttama. The Lord revealed that they will meet an untimely death. Dhruva had a desire to enjoy materially. And the Lord says that you will enjoy material opulences like youth and senses and piety. And then Dhruva's final desire was to attain the Lord. And the Lord says that you will constantly remember me and attain me at the end of your life. So in this way, the Lord gives Dhruva 5 benedictions, 4 for his material desires and 1 for his spiritual desire that manifested later on. Moving on, verse 26. Maitreya uvacha ityarchita sa bhagavan ati dishyatmanaha padam balasya pashato dhama swamaga garudhvajaha. The great sage Maitreya said, after being worshipped and honored by the boy, Dhruva Maharaj, and after offering him his own abode, Lord Vishnu on the back of Garud returned to his abode as Dhruva Maharaj looked on. Srila Prabhupada says that from this verse it appears that Lord awarded Dhruva Maharaj the same abode in which he resides. His abode is described in Bhagavad Gita as Yad gatva na nirvantante tad dhama paramam mama. This is chapter 15, verse 6. So, at the beginning, we had said that this particular incarnation of Krishna that came to give benedictions to Dhruva is Lord Prishnigarbha. And he's a Leela avatar for a pastime incarnation. But even though he is a Leela avatar, he is eternally residing in his own planet in Vaikuntha. And then drawn by the love of his devotee, he had come to award suitable benediction. And having done that, he returned to his own planet in Vaikuntha, which he had also awarded to Dhruva. So iti archita means that in addition to the prayers. So while the Lord was leaving, then Dhruva had already worshipped the Lord with very nice prayers. Now he worships him in other ways, which the Lord accepts. Verse 27. Sapi sankalpajam Vishnu padaseva pasaditam prapya sankalpa nirvanam nati prito bhayagat puram. Despite having achieved the desired result of his determination by worshipping the lotus feet of the Lord, Dhruva Maharaj was not very pleased. Thus he returned to his home. So in 10 verses, 27 to 36, we will see the regret of Dhruva. So, Prapya Sankalpa Nirvana, that whatever he had, Sankalp means determination, that whatever he had determined to acquire, Prapya Sankalpa Nirvana, he had attained Sankalpajam. Sankalpajam means that by worshipping the Lord, Vishnu Pad Seva Upasaditam, that by worshipping the lotus feet of the Lord with determination. So what does he do now? Abhayagat Puram. Puram literally means city. Here it means that he returned to his own, his father's capital. Na atiprito, but he was not satisfied. So this shows that the fulfillment of material desires can satisfy a person only to some extent. Dhruva was not unhappy, thinking that he should have asked for more. So there's no regret in Dhruva that I should have asked the Lord for maybe living a longer life or more powers. The reason that he is unhappy is that he asked the Lord for anything other than an opportunity to serve him. So even though the Lord has given him spiritual benediction, he has said that you will come back to me, Dhruva is still unhappy because he approached the Lord with material desires. Now, this is the blessing of the Lord, that when a sincere person approaches the Lord, even with material desires, the Lord fulfills the desires and at the same time takes away the desires. And we see this happening in Dhruva right now. That Dhruva had started the process full of material desires. When the Lord appeared, then he had lost all those desires. He's ashamed that he even had those desires at some point of time. But the person is so fortunate that the Lord fulfills all his desires, material as well as spiritual. Which is why in the Bhagavatam, it says that everyone with or without desires should only approach the Lord. The same principle is the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. Like Sarvadhan Pratyajaya Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraj. Don't worry about anything else, just take shelter of me. Right? Not necessarily if you're a pure devotee, but any way or form, take shelter of me. Okay, we'll do one more verse and then we'll pause for any discussion. Verse 28. Vidurvacha Sudurlubham yat paramam padam hare Maya vinashta charana charanajitam Labdvapya siddhartham iveka janmana Katham swamatmanam amanayatarthavet. Shri Vidur inquired, my dear Brahman, the abode of the Lord is very difficult to attain. It can be attained only by pure devotional service, which alone pleases the most affectionate, merciful Lord. Dhruva Maharaj achieved this position even in one life, and he was very wise and conscientious. Why then was he not very pleased? So in the previous verse, Maitreya had said, Na atiprito, that Dhruva was dissatisfied. So Vidur is surprised that there is nothing higher than getting the shelter of the Lord, right? So he says, Yat paramam padumam hare, that the lotus feet of the Lord are sudurlabha, that they're very difficult. And Dhruva had attained it arjitam. So arjitam means that he followed the right process and mayavina. And with great affection, Dhruva had worshipped the lotus feet of the Lord, Charan Archana. So all this was attained by Dhruva in one lifetime. Not only in one lifetime, in just 6 months. So Vidur is saying that ek janmana, in one life only, Dhruva attained all this. Others, it takes millions of lifetimes. So Vidur is thinking that perhaps because Dhruva is only 5 years old, he does not appreciate the greatness of his own achievement. That is why he is unhappy. So in order to clear that misconception, Dhruva, Vidur says that actually Dhruva is Arthavit. Arthavit means one who knows the true value of things. Right? So he's saying, I'm not saying this because I'm thinking that Dhruva is a child who is confused. He's actually Arthavit. He clearly knows what is the value of all this. So with sincere effort, Dhruva attained the object of his worship very quickly. And he knows the rarity of the exalted nature of that which he has attained. So then why was Dhruva asiddhartham? Why was he feeling unfulfilled? Swayam atmanam amanyat, within his heart. So as a devotee, Vidura knows that attaining the benediction of residing in the spiritual world is the highest benediction. So why was he still unhappy? So Dhruva says, Vidura says that Iva means it looks as if Dhruva is unhappy. So he is acknowledging the exalted position of Dhruva. He's not criticizing Dhruva. He's saying that it looks to me that Dhruva is unhappy because I fully don't understand the nuances of what is going on in a personality as exalted as Dhruva Maharaj. Vidur is very exalted himself, but with humility, he's saying that it looks as if he is unhappy. He's giving the reasons from his perspective that why he should not be unhappy, but he looks as if unhappy. So maybe he's turning to his Guru Maitreya that maybe you can help me. Prabhupada in the purport gives a sneak preview of the answer that will come later on. That Prabhupada says that the word Arthavit refers to one who knows how to discriminate between reality and unreality. And Arthavit is also called Paramhamsa. Paramhamsa accepts only the active principle of everything, just as a swan accepts milk from a mixture of water and milk. So he's saying Dhruva Maharaj was in this category. And due to his determination, he achieved the result he desired. But still, when he returned home, he was not very pleased. Okay, so we'll see more about why Dhruva was not pleased. So let me pause here and see if we have any comments or discussion.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Just one clarification about after the life of Brahma, we understood that Dhruv go back to Vaikuntha. And then after the creation again, after the life of Brahma, since we said Dhruva is eternal, then the whole thing starts again. And but also in the verse it says that Dhruva will stay with him forever, with Lord Vishnu. Then there will be another Dhruva.
Vishwanath Chakravarti says that at the end of Brahma's life, Dhruva will ascend to Mahavaikuntha. So he will go back to the Vaikuntha in the spiritual world. So even though the planet of Dhruva, which is considered as the same as the planet of Lord Vishnu, Kshodakshaya Vishnu, is spiritual, but it manifests in the material world for the time that the material world is manifested. And when the material world is destroyed, then it continues to manifest in the spiritual world.
Yeah, but where I may be confused, in now there's another Kalpa, there's another Brahma that come, and there's a cycle repeat again, or there's another Dhruva, just like there's another Brahma, or how does that work?
Oh, I see what you're asking. It's a good question. I don't know. I haven't seen any commentary on that. I guess your point is that even if Dhruva goes back to the spiritual world, then when another Brahma is born, then if this pastime happens again, then there'll be two Dhruvas after that, and so on. I haven't read any commentary on that. The only one that I read is the one by Vishwanath Chakravarti, who says that for the life of Brahma, Dhruva will continue to live in Dhruva Lok, and after that he goes back to Mahavaikuntha.
Yeah, okay. Maybe there's only one Dhruva, most probably.
Maybe it's the same Dhruva who comes down again to do his pastimes with the Lord, or maybe. But I have not read anything, so difficult for me to comment.
It's okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Regarding the Dhruva going to Dhruva Lok, we also hear that at the end of his life, when the death personified comes, he steps on the head of the death personified and climbs the Vimana, Pushpaka Vimana, and ascends to. That time he goes to Dhruva Lok, or he goes to Vaikuntha? Which part is that?
He goes to Dhruva Lok. So the term Vaikuntha Lok and Dhruva Lok and Shishumar are used interchangeably. So Vaikuntha Lok, as you know, it's not one planet, right? Vaikuntha Lok is unlimited number of planets. So the planet of Dhruva is part of Vaikuntha. So that's why it's also called Vaikuntha Lok.
And he goes to the spiritual body. He gives up the material body and goes to the spiritual body, right? Am I right? Or?
He does not. This comes later on, that he goes in his very own body. His body becomes spiritualized. This will come, I believe, in the 12th chapter it comes.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, in the verse 24, where Lord is giving benedictions to Dhruva, you had mentioned an important thing here to notice that about Krishna Prasad distribution. I was just trying to understand this last statement by Prabhupada in his purport. No one has sufficient money to distribute. But if we distribute Krishna Prasad as far as possible, this is more valuable than the distribution of money. Now, what I understood is Prabhupada is kind of foretelling how things will be with money in today's times. It's never sufficient. I don't know if that's a speculation, but also giving Krishna Prasad gives more satisfaction in terms of doing charity than just paper money type of thing. Is that a right understanding?
It is. I think I think you're understanding it in the way that Prabhupada would like us to understand. That verse makes 2 points. That Dhruva lived a long life and he did yajna and he gave in charity. Right? So these are the 2 things that are considered. I mean, he probably did many other things, but these are 2 things that are called out, that the Lord has given him as a benediction, that you will perform any great sacrifices and you will give in charity. So if you consider that these 2 things are benediction by the Lord, which means that one is fortunate to be able to do so, then one would like to do it, right? So if one is able to do it, one can understand one as the favor of the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada makes the connection that in the present day and age, the yajna is Sankirtan yajna and charity is prasadam distribution. So if one is able to do those 2, then it is as if one is receiving the benedictions of the Lord that Dhruva had received.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Hare Bol Prabhuji. 2 questions, Prabhuji. One is when the Lord was telling about the eventual fate of Suruchi and Uttama, Dhruva is silent. It tends to show his acceptance of their destiny. Generally, devotees being kind, they want good for others. Is any specific reason why Dhruva choose to be silent?
I haven't read any commentary on that aspect.
Sure, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. And second question, Prabhuji, like Swayambhu Manu, the great grandfather of Dhruva, meaning this confusion I always carry, Prabhu, like whether he belongs to this particular kalpa, the day we belong to, or in the beginning of the creation, that is the first day of Brahma, when Brahma born and the 2 living entities come. So at that time, Swayambhu Manu appeared.
It's something that I was also thinking about, because we know that in a day of Brahma, there are 14 manvantras. And the manvantras, they follow a certain sequence. It does not say that the same Manus appear in the different days of Brahma. Also, the first day of Brahma is special. In the 3rd canto, there is a long commentary given by Jiva Goswami on the naming of the kalpas and the manvantras. And there he says that the first manvantara is special because the universe is created for the first time. After that, there is partial destruction of the universe. Now we know that Swayambhu Manu takes that position, right? When we studied Visarga, then we know that right after Sarga, when the universe is created, Swayambhu Manu takes that position. So that's the extent to which I know. I haven't read or heard whether Swayambhu Manu comes only in the first day of Brahma, or if he comes in any of the other days. The cyclicity across the days of Brahma, it's a bit of a mystery. We have some understanding of the cyclicity within the day of Brahma, Right? We know that Varadev comes in the first and the sixth manvantras in the day of Brahma. We know that certain personalities will come in every manvantara, right? So there's some understanding of the cyclicity. But across the days of Brahma and across, like Sarang Prabhu was asking, across the lives of Brahma, that cyclicity is not, it's not explained for various reasons. It may be too difficult for us to understand.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Because this question triggered to me because, I was so far assuming that Dhruva belongs to our particular Kalpa. Then there is no presiding deity for Dhruva planet, means like 50 years of Brahma's life. There is no presiding deity kind of course, anything is possible, but that's where again the question about Swayambhu Manu triggered.
Also, when Srila Prabhupada said there was no presiding deity, then what he means is that there was no embodied soul who was presiding on that planet. Right? Because Lord Vishnu is eternally residing there. Right? He's the presiding deity. He's always there. Dhruva was the first person to enter it with a material body. So that's why he has this special position there.
Okay. Yes, Prabhuji. Got it, Prabhuji. Otherwise, there are Vishnu is there and liberated souls are there.
His associates are there. Now, again, not right for me to say Dhruva entered with his material body, because when he entered his material body, he became specialized. Right. So he did, but the understanding is that he was given a position that nobody else in the universe had been given that position. That's the way to understand it, right? Because with a material body, obviously he can't live in a spiritual world.
Yeah.
But he went with his material body, but it was spiritualized.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Okay. So moving on to verse 29. Maitre Vacha Matu Sapatanya Vagbane Hridi Vidastutam Smaran Naicham Muktipatir Muktim Tasmatapam Upeyavan. Maitreya answered, Dhruva Maharaj's heart, which was pierced by the arrows of the harsh words of his stepmother, was greatly aggrieved. And thus, when he fixed upon his goal of life, he did not forget her misbehavior. He did not demand actual liberation from this material world, but at the end of his devotional service, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared before him, he was simply ashamed of the material demands he had in his mind. So Maitreya is answering the question asked by Vidura, that why is it that Dhruva appeared to be displeased, even though he had attained the highest goal? Srila Prabhupada says that this important verse has been discussed by many stalwart commentators. Why was Dhruva Maharaj not very pleased, even after achieving the goal he desired? So Maitreya says that Dhruva's journey begins with the interaction with Suruchi, the co-wife of his mother. He says, Matu Sapatanya. Suruchi insulted Dhruva, Vag Banir. So Vag is birds and Banir is arrows. With the arrows of bird, Hridividas. She pierced his heart. Then, in order to avenge the insult, Dhruva worshipped the Lord. So Maitreya is establishing the context that why did Dhruva worship the Lord? Then Smarantutan. So now Dhruva is remembering all this. Remembering all this, Dhruva did not desire liberation by the award order of liberation. So na muktim mukti patir. So one of Krishna's name is Mukti Patir. Manu was liberation. So Dhruva did not desire mukti from Mukti Patir. Therefore, tasmat tapam upeyuva. Therefore, he suffered from grief. Now, understanding the grief of Dhruva, it is important to understand the time frame in which Dhruva is evaluating himself, right? So, Vishwanath Chakravarti, he gives a fairly elaborate analytical breakdown of the cause of the dissatisfaction of Dhruva. So let's follow that. So in verse 10, Dhruva expressed his preference of serving the Lord over the impersonal Brahma. So I'm not doing the Sanskrit just because it will become laborious, but this is the verses in this very chapter that Vishwanath Chakravarti is quoting, that in the 10th verse of this chapter, Dhruva had said that rather than, he said that, my Lord, the transcendental bliss derived from meditating upon your lotus feet is far beyond the stage of Brahman, right? So he expresses a desire to serve the Lord as opposed to the impersonal Brahman. In the next verse 11, Dhruva said that, O unlimited Lord, kindly bless me so that I may associate with great devotees who engage in your transcendental loving service. So, from this we can understand that Dhruva himself wanted to be an associate of the Lord. But then the statement in this verse that Naicha Mukti Pater Muktim, the statements made by Maitreya that Dhruva did not desire liberation is not suitable. So perhaps it is because Dhruva was rejecting liberation, considering it to be impersonal, because he wanted to serve the Lord in the association of devotees. That may be an option. Vishwanath Chakravarti says not true. Vishwanath Chakravarti says that muktim over here does not point to the liberation of merging into the Lord. So he says that muktim over here points to becoming an associate of the Lord. So it's not possible that Dhruva would be justified in rejecting this liberation. So where does this get us now? Dhruva wanted to serve the Lord as an associate of the Lord. Muktim points to serving the Lord as an associate. Then why does Dhruva reject it? So the word smaranam, remembering, is in the present tense. So this indicates that he does not desire to become the Lord's association in the present while he is remembering his past impure state. So with humility, Dhruva is saying that look at me. Who am I? I came to the Lord asking for all these material things. Do I have the right to serve the Lord along with his associates? No. So his rejection is not because he feels that he should get more. His rejection is because he feels that he is not sufficiently qualified on account of his past material desires. So when Dhruva had met with the Lord, all his material desires had vanished. His material senses had become spiritualized. But in verse 19, the Lord had said, Veda aham te vyavastitam, that I know of your desires. Hearing this, Dhruva becomes very ashamed. He thinks, and this is Vishwanath Chakravarti thinking on behalf of Dhruva. So Dhruva thought, my Lord knows of my foolish material desires, since he remembers my previous vows. Why did I make such a vow? I am so foolish. When I said in verse 11, this is Dhruva saying, when I said in verse 11, I only wanted the association of your devotees, the Lord must have thought that I am deceiving him. Therefore, the Lord does not fill that desire, but he is fulfilling my worthless material desires. And then Dhruva says that when the Lord is talking about the future, he talks about the death of my stepbrother and my stepmother. So the Lord is once again reminding me of my envious nature. So the Lord says, I know you're envious of your stepbrother. Look, he's going to die. I know you're envious of your stepmother. She is going to die going after her son. So essentially, Dhruva, in his mind, he is considering the benedictions given by the Lord as something that are reflecting on his own impurities. He is not blaming the Lord. He is not blaming the process. Of course, later on we'll see that he blames some other people. But right now he's not blaming the Lord. He never blames the Lord. Later on he will blame the demigods. But right now he's only blaming himself. That I approached the Lord with material desires, and then I had this impunity. I had this gall to ask the Lord, make me your associate. And the Lord says, you want to be my associate? Look, your stepmother is going to die. I'm sure you will feel happy about it. Uttam is going to die. I think you will be happy about it. And look, I'm going to give you eternal youth or long youth to enjoy. I'm sure you will be happy about it. Right? So it's almost like a person is seeing his own self-worth being reflected by the statements of the other person. So Dhruva is deriving his own self-worth based on what he thinks the Lord is evaluating him as. He thinks that if the Lord considered me as fully spiritual, he would not have given me all these benedictions. He would have simply said that come back to me and serve along with my associates. This is the reason why Dhruva is feeling grief, that he approached the Lord with impure desires. And the reason that Dhruva is not desiring liberation, which is attaining the association of devotees, because he does not feel that he is qualified. So what does this show us? So this shows that the journey of realization in Dhruva and the purifying aspects of bhakti. Right? So when Dhruva first started, he wanted revenge on his stepmother, and then he had a material desire to be on top of his father. That's how he started the journey. At that time, he had no desire for liberation. Right? When Narad Muni started speaking about piety, and Dhruva said, I don't even understand what you're saying. Narad Muni was not speaking about spirituality, right? When Narad Muni started saying, you go back home, and then he said, don't be envious, live in a harmonious way. And Dhruva said, I'm a Ghor Kshatriya. All these words don't make sense. So at that time, he was only driven by the desire for revenge. Now, by the end of the process, Dhruva again has no desire for liberation. He started the process with no desire for liberation. He ends the process with no desire for liberation. The underlying reason is different. Previously, he did not desire liberation because he wanted material benefits. Now he does not desire liberation because he considers himself to be unfit. Earlier on, when he was 5-year-old, Narad said that you're not fit to be in this position. Dhruva said, yes, I am fit. You please tell me. I'm absolutely fit. And now that he has accomplished so much, he is genuinely considering himself to be unfit. So this is the journey of spirituality. That the external desires may not change, but the internal consciousness changes. Dhruva started with no desire for liberation. He ended with no desire for liberation. But the consciousness changed. Similarly, when practicing devotees take to bhakti, externally things may not change. They may continue to work. They may continue to aspire for various kinds of successes. Internal consciousness changes, right? And this is why Srila Prabhupada says important verse, because it reflects on practicing devotees. That in Krishna consciousness, the desires the aspirations may remain the same, the desires will change. I want a big house so that I can do big programs. Right? That's the desire may still be the same. I want a big house. But behind that consciousness, the desire is so that I can do big programs. Or I can honor devotees, or whatever the case may be. Srila Prabhupada says that Dhruva Maharaj was situated on the Vasudev platform. So all his material contaminations were cleared. Thus he became ashamed that his demands were and what he had achieved. He was very much ashamed to think that although he had gone to Madhuvan, giving up the kingdom of his father, he had gotten a spiritual master like Narad Muni, he was still thinking of revenge against his stepmother. This was the cause of the moroseness. Okay, next verse 30. Dhruva vacha samadhinan naika bhavena yat padam vidu sanandadya urdva retasah Masheraham shadviramushya padayos chayam upetya pakata prathanmati. Dhruva Maharaj thought to himself, to endeavor to be situated in the shade of the lotus feet of the Lord is not an ordinary task. Because even the great brahmacharis headed by Sananda, who practiced Astanga Yoga in trance, attained the shelter of the Lord's lotus feet only after many, many births. Within 6 months, I achieved the same result. Yet, due to my thinking differently from the Lord, I fell down from my position. So why does Dhruv consider that he has fallen down from his position, despite all the benedictions that are offered to him? So Vishwanath Chakravarti says that Dhruva thinks that if the Lord has accepted him if the Lord had accepted him as a devotee, he would have taken him back to the spiritual world along with him. Why is Dhruva expecting that? Because Dhruva says in the earlier part, it's not that Dhruva is boasting that in 6 months I got what Sananda would get after many, many lifetimes, so I am great and he's not. He's not in that frame of mind. The point that he's making to himself, that somehow or the other, I was able to get something that is very, very rare, the personal audience of the Lord, which means that I had access to the Lord's mercy. Because if the Lord was not, so Dhruva is saying that I am not qualified. But within 6 months, the Lord came in front of me. So what does that mean? That the Lord was merciful on me. But because my consciousness is not properly situated, the Lord gave me some material benedictions and went away. He did not take me back with him. So while the Lord came giving me mercy, I am so fallen that I was not able to avail of the mercy of the Lord. So Prabhupada said that Dhruva Maharaj could understand very clearly that the Lord had offered him the rule of the world for 36,000 years. So Dhruva greatly lamented his propensity for ruling the material world and his revengeful attitude towards other living entities. In the 6th canto of the Bhagavatam, chapter 4, Daksha, after performing austerities for 3 manvantras, he chanted the Hamsagoyam prayers. And at that time, the Lord's benediction to Daksha was that inspired by my illusory energy, you will have many progenies, and they will have many progenies. So, even though the Lord had appeared before Daksha, he's saying that you will still be under my illusory energy. Dhruva is considering himself in the same situation. Now, of course, Daksha is a future descendant, but conceptually, Dhruva is considering himself in the same situation. That the Lord, because of his mercy, came to me, but just like he told Daksha that you will be enjoying under my illusory energy, that's what he is telling me also. That I will enjoy for a long time, my youth will be preserved, my senses will be strong, I will give in charity, I will perform pious activities, all material benefits, benediction that he has given me. Now, another point to note here is that while we are on the topic of Daksha, this is Daksha 2, of course, that both Dhruva and Daksha, they approach the Lord with material desires. Daksha approached the Lord to have children. Prabhupada said essentially Daksha approached the Lord to have good sex life. And Dhruva approached the Lord to have a kingdom greater than his forefathers. But the outcome is different. When the Lord came in front of Daksha, he said that you will enjoy many progeny. When he came in front of Dhruva, he said that not only will you enjoy material opulence, you will come back to me. Why did he not give that benediction to Daksha? And Vishwanath Chakravarti explains that the difference is that Dhruva was, before receiving the mercy of Lord Vishnu, he received the mercy of Narad Muni. So, because he was acting under the instructions of a pure devotee, the mercy of the Lord was openly flowing to Dhruva. Daksha did not have that benefit. His intrinsic desire was to have, he was a Prajapati, his intrinsic desire was to have progeny. And Daksha also had this problem of offending Vaishnavas. So he got what he asked for. Right? But in case of Dhruva, because of the mercy of the devotee, the Lord gave him much, much more. Okay. We'll do one more verse, and after that, pause for any discussion. Verse 31. Aho bhat mamanatmayam manda bhagasya parshata bhavachidda padamulam gatvajache yat antava. Alas, just look at me. I am so unfortunate. I approached the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who can immediately cut the chain of the repetition of birth and death. But still, out of my foolishness, I prayed for things which are perishable. So Prabhupada said that the word anatmayam is very significant in this verse. Atma means the soul, and anatmya means without the conception of the soul. Srila Rishabdev instructed his sons that unless the human being comes to the point of understanding the Atma or spiritual possession, whatever he does is in ignorance. And this brings only defeat in his life. Dhruva Maharaj regrets his unfortunate position, for although he approached the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is always able to give his devotee the highest benediction of cessation of the repetition of birth and death, which is impossible for any demigod to offer, he foolishly wanted something perishable. So we see Dhruva is considering himself to be anatmaya, in a state of ignorance. So though the devotee does not ask explicitly, but the Lord destroys the ignorance in the devotees. So even though he attained the lotus feet of the Lord, just because of receiving Vaishnav Diksha, Dhruva is saying that I pray to attain the temporary. This is my fault. And then the Lord, because of his mercy, gave me Dhruva Loka. That was the mercy of the Lord. Okay, I'll pause here, see if there is any comments.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna, Prabhuji. One question, Prabhuji, like the example of Dhruva and Daksha, they both are compared. Dhruva has the fortune of having a spiritual master, but both approached the Lord with mixed desires. Because I wanted to understand, because for both of them, Krishna reciprocated. Some reciprocation is there. In Dhruva's case, he offered much more than what he asked for. He asked for material benediction, but he got spiritual perfection also. If somebody approaches Krishna for spiritual perfection, but he lacks the mercy of spiritual master, such a person has any possibility? Because this is common question generally outside world. We hear that, I can learn things by myself. So I wanted to understand spiritual master, if you can help me, because even if somebody approaches with spiritual perfection, will Krishna reciprocate, or
It's considered to be difficult to the extent that it's generally considered as not possible. And that's why it's always said that one should approach the Lord through bona fide disciplic succession under the guidance of the spiritual master. Now, this is not to say that Daksha was not in a bona fide disciplic succession, or he was he did not have the shelter of a spiritual master. It's not to say that. But the difference between Dhruva and Daksha is that because Dhruva had taken shelter of a pure devotee, the instructions that were given by his guru were in such a way that they ultimately resulted in bhakti fructifying. Because if you look at Narad's instruction, like he gave very specific instruction designed in a way to nourish the bhakti. So as a devotee, he was able to plant the seed of bhakti in Dhruva's heart, and as a spiritual master, he was able to nourish that seed. But second part of your question was that if somebody approaches the Lord without the via medium of a guru, it depends on the sincerity of the person. Right? Krishna says that if somebody approaches me sincerely, I make arrangements for the person to get a spiritual master. Ultimately, you need shelter of a spiritual master, but does not have to be step one, step two, right? It does not, like in almost all our lives, all our Krishna conscious lives, before we got the shelter of Guru, we had the desire to take shelter of Krishna. Right? So it is said that by the mercy of Krishna, you get the shelter of the Guru. By the mercy of the Guru, you get shelter of Krishna. So they both work hand in hand. And of course, if there are people who are insincerely approaching Krishna, then Krishna, Prabhupada says that you will get what you deserve. If you want to be cheated, then Krishna will send you a guru who will cheat you. And if you sincerely approach, Krishna will send you a guru who will guide you.
Yes, Prabhuji. Very well clarified, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Sure, thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I was wondering, like, so the stepmother, Suruchi, in a way, she was the first person to tell Dhruva, right, that go approach Vishnu, and if he's pleased, you will take birth from me. I mean, agreed that she said it with a lot of, poison in her heart, but could she be given a benefit of doubt and in that regard and considered as like somebody who showed him the path?
This is actually discussed later on. She is not considered to be the path pradakshak. In the 12th chapter of this canto is discussed, not in the verse, but in one of the discussions on the verse. She is not considered to be the path pradakshak because she was not showing him the path. Right? She was basically condemning him. Like it said that, she was saying that you worship Vishnu really to show off that she herself is a great devotee, but essentially she was condemning Dhruva. Suniti takes the position of path pradakshak, that she extracts nectar from poison. The words of poison spoken by your mother have gems of nectar in them, and she extracts and gives it to Dhruva. So intent has to be there, and for the person to have the position of a guru, which was lacking in the case of Suruchi.
Thank you, Prabhu. I think that's very well said, that she was able to extract the nectar from the poison. Can I also just quickly summarize my understanding of that crucial verse that you spoke? Basically, you were saying, my understanding is, so Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that Dhruva initially said he preferred serving the Lord over Brahman, which means he preferred pure devotional service. Then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur quotes verse 11 and he says, may I associate with the Lord? But the catch is that he wants service of the Lord, but not at the present moment, because he considers himself to not be pure or not be worthy of receiving that specific mercy of the Lord. Is that right? That's why he's saying not desiring mukti.
That is correct.
Okay.
And lot of what Vishwanath Chakravarti writes is also defending it against other commentators. So that is why he goes through this whole process to explain that when Dhruva says mukti, he's not talking about impersonal liberation. And that's why he goes through the sequence. That Dhruva had already said that I prefer serving you over impersonal liberation. Then when he's asking for mukti, it doesn't make sense for him to ask for impersonal liberation. So when Dhruva says mukti, then he's talking about taking the position of the associate of the Lord. So once he establishes that premise, then it is easy to understand that why Dhruva is considering himself unqualified, because it's a very exalted platform, and he said, I have a history of being contaminated with material desires, so I don't have the right to be the personal associate of the Lord. So the sense I get is that Vishwanath Chakravarti is also defending it against other commentators who probably have commented that Dhruva is expressing distress because he had some aspirations for impersonal liberation. Now, he does not, of course, write it in his purport, But the way that he spends a lot of time, most of his argumentation is to establish the fact that mukti in this context refers to becoming an associate of the Lord. The other part is pretty straightforward. He just says that, and because he had material desires, he doesn't consider himself to be qualified. So yeah, in short, your understanding is accurate.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. On the same topic, like Dhruva was feeling dissatisfied or not happy or displeased because he carried those vengeful tendencies against his stepmother and his brother. But then we also hear that at the end of towards the end of his life, his stepbrother Uttama when he was killed, he was very angry and vengeful against the yakshas, and he was fighting again with such a vengeful attitude. Somebody else had to remind him of his defect. So I was thinking that although he realized at the time when he was with Lord Vishnu, he still had that residual tendency still towards the end of the life when he was taking vengeance against the yakshas. So can you throw some light on that? Is it so? Eventually, he got rid of that, but I was thinking, like, is that right understanding that he still had the residual tendency?
Well, there are 2 points that you made. One is that I guess you're asking that if Dhruv had envy towards Uttam, then why did he become so angry later on when Uttam was killed, right? That can be answered in the context of this chapter, that Dhruv, of course, does not know the details of what happens later on, but right now he's essentially responding to the benedictions by the Lord, right? So he's looking at himself from the perspective of the Lord, that the Lord is giving me all this material benediction. The Lord is telling me that your stepbrother will be killed, your stepmother will be killed, because this is what the Lord thinks I care about. So he's not saying that the Lord doesn't really know me, and if he thinks like this about me, he's mistaken. But he's considering the fact that the Lord knows him better than he knows himself. So if the Lord is giving him all this material benediction, then the Lord knows that he has material desires. So that's why he's condemning himself. Right? So that is the understanding in the context of this chapter. Why Dhruva becomes angry at the killing of Uttama? It's a discussion that we'll have when we reach that point. I don't want to take away the thunder of those verses. Acharyas have commented on it. Maybe if you can hold the question till then, we'll discuss it at that time.
Sure, Prabhu, no problem. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. And thank you for the nice questions. So we'll stop here. Vanchakalpatarubhayascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thai Gaur Premanand. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.